Okay,
Thank you. We'll get started.
okay. Welcome to the May 1st Kent County Planning Commission meeting. I'll do the roll call. Ray Strong.
Aye.
Paul Ruge.
Here.
Jonathan Quinn.
Here.
Bill Crowdy.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Today, I hope we had a chance to look at the April 3rd minutes. If there are any additions, corrections, mistakes, if hearing none, entertain a motion.
I'd like to move with approve the minutes from last April 3rd.
Okay, yes.
Second.
Got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, our first application, Carla, is the application of Lester C. Jones, Inc. for a special exception and setback variance and a concept site plan for a structure for processing and sale of animal products.
Good afternoon. Lester C. Jones and Sons Incorporated is requesting a special exception, a setback variance, and concept site plan review to utilize an existing facility for the processing and sale of animal products to diversify their current agricultural operation through value-added products. The applicants recently purchased the former Bear Ag Research Facility located at 32545 Galena Sassafras Road and are seeking approval to use the facility for milk and meat processing, retail sales, events, food preparation, and ag education. The special exception requires a 600-foot setback, which cannot be met with the existing buildings, therefore a variance is also required. The 134-acre farm is zoned agricultural zoning district and has 19,000 square feet of enclosed space that will be divided up for the various proposed uses. The special exception, the applicable laws found in Article 7, Section 7.58. There are a couple of standards specific to structures for the buying, processing, and sale of animal products, commercial. And then there are the normal findings that the Planning Commission and Board of Appeals will need to make, staff and TAC comments. The proposed site is already developed with buildings previously used as an ag research facility. The front yard is already landscaped. All of the structures, however, are less than 600 feet from the front and side property lines, and therefore the applicant needs the variance. The parcel is uniquely shaped with a narrow area along the Galena Sassafras Road that opens to a larger field behind the buildings. Activities related to milk and meat processing will be completely enclosed. The proposed uses will comply with required regulations regarding safe food handling and waste disposal. The surrounding area is agricultural. The nearest houses are more than 600 feet from the buildings. The nearest schools, churches, and other public facilities are more than 1 mile from the site. There are no known impacts related on community facilities or services or landmarks, no known impacts from noise, smoke, vibration, odors, or other hazards. The proposed uses are appropriate and consistent with the comprehensive plan and land use ordinance. As for the variance, the applicable laws, Article 9, Section 2.2. Staff and TAC comments. The buildings for milk and meat processing are approximately 340 feet from the front property line, 525 feet from the west side, and 135 feet from the east side. The buildings are more than 600 feet from the rear property lines. The building that will be used for sales is approximately 167 feet from the front, 500 feet from the west, and 135 feet from the east. The practical difficulty is due to the shape of the parcel, which is only 775 feet wide at the front where all of the buildings are located. And the existing buildings were all built in conformance with regulations when they were constructed. Granting the variance will not cause a substantial detriment to adjacent or neighboring properties. The variance will not change the character of the neighborhood or district. The comprehensive plan supports this application as it recognizes the importance of diversifying agricultural operations and encouraging agritourism. The practical difficulty is due to the size, shape, and configuration of the parcel. The property, although large, has an irregular shape, and the existing buildings are located on the narrow portion of the property. Standards for site plan review are found in Article 6, Section 5.2. Staff comments. The proposal is consistent with multiple goals and strategies of the comprehensive plan. The applicant is working with state and local health departments to obtain the required permits. The proposal is consistent with the general intent, use, and design and environmental standards in the ordinance. Adequate parking is available. There are no known unreasonable demands on public services or infrastructure. Per the narrative, wastewater from the milk processing plant will be collected and hauled back to the dairy farm to be disposed of according to the farm's waste management plan. And noise, smoke, fumes, dust, or odors beyond that which are commonly associated with agricultural uses is anticipated to be very limited, and therefore, staff recommends sending a favorable recommendation for the special exception and variance to the Board of Appeals, and there is no correspondence, to my knowledge, related to this application.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or representative for Lester Jones here?
Here.
Come forward. Can you raise your right hand? The testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
And name and address for the record, please.
Ethan Jones, 32595 Spear Road, Millington, Maryland.
Okay, thank you. What can you tell us about this application?
It's basically just trying to get us to the point to where we can expand our operations. The exception would be for the selling of meat products and milk products that we make ourselves on the farm. And then the setback, as she mentioned earlier, the location of where the buildings that we bought are and the shape of the property, the 600 feet setback, that's what we're looking for.
Good. Any questions for the staff or the applicant?
I have one. On the site plan that we have here, you've got a barn out by itself, out in the middle of the field, the one right here. What is that going to be used for?
Which building are you talking about, Paul?
I'm sorry?
Which building?
The one, you see the parking area, then it looks like a new building out in the middle of the field? Yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah, that would be where we'd have animals for basically show, for people to see. The idea of the property would be for people to come in as like an agritourism kind of.
No, I understand that. I think it's, obviously, it's a good reuse of what's there. But was any thought given to putting that over in the back? Because if you drive by this out in front, that building is out in the middle of a area that you're farming at this point, and it appears that you want to save all the farmland that you can based on the land conservation districts we had last month.
Yep.
You're just it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and it's getting close to the neighbor's house and whatever, where if you put it behind, this is me thinking, if you put it behind, you still got the parking area, and the building is there, you can't see it from the road. Why wouldn't you put it out there, or what, did you give that any
So
thought?
the thought process is where we would have our outdoor area where people would be able to sit in like the warmer months like right now. That would put them closer to the animals so they'd be able to see them more vividly. The area around that section of field too, we would essentially use for sunflowers, any kind of pick your own flowers, vegetables, stuff like that. That small section of field is the easiest spot for us to section off, but keep the backside still in our production agriculture use.
Well, I guess where I'm going is, I think you could still do that, with the plantings and everything else that you want to do, but move the building in the back, then everything would stay pretty much the way it is now, and the way, let's just say, the people of Kent County through the master plan would like to see, they want to see the agriculture area, not a barn. That's where I'm going, and I'm just curious as to why.
That was the thought process for us, was just so where we plan on putting our outdoor area, seating area, that would keep the animals close to them. If it's on the backside of the facility, that kind of separates it from everything else. Backside of the.
Yeah, and I don't see where it'd be any farther away, you're just in a different direction. And you've already got a road that you could drive up it. You may have to improve a gravel road a little bit, but, you could. And if you drive, I drove by there yesterday, and you look at it from the front, and I try to envision a building out in the middle of that field, you're really gonna you'll lose a lot of area, because you will lose more, because you'll drive around the building, there'll be different.
It's not really out in the middle, though.
Pardon?
It's only 100 feet from over here.
This building is part of the agritourism.
Yeah, but it's out, that's why I say you have to go take a look at it.
I go by there all the time.
I'm sure you do, and it's,
I just didn't see that, but okay.
but I'm just looking at it, to me, it would just, I guess, visually, it would just look better, and,
I mean, the animals inside this barn too, the idea is we'd also need outdoor space for them to live as well. This section of the property, the way it's laid out right now, would make the most sense for us to take that parcel of ground and use for that exact purpose. And once again, it's just trying to keep everything, milk processing and packaging and all that other stuff will be on the backside of the facility. So if we put the building on the backside, people would have to go around the processing aspects of which they
Yeah,
wouldn't
but
necessarily.
if you're gonna
need to.
have people there, I don't see how they're gonna get there. You don't have that laid out in the plan. You just have a parking area, and I'm assuming that's a parking area and a building, and it's in the middle of
I don't know if it's exactly on this map, but the idea for the outdoor seating area would be in between that main building and that proposed barn.
the proposed seating would be in between, but that's not on your plan.
But after he gets pasture and stuff around that barn, it's not gonna look like it's sticking out in the middle of everywhere. I understand why he's doing what he's doing, and after he gets it there and because he's gonna need pasture for the animals, it's not gonna look like it's sticking out there in the middle.
Yeah.
But that's not, this is, granted, this is just a
I was
concept
going to
plan.
say, it's a concept plan.
Yeah, it's just a concept, that's why I'm throwing out I'm just throwing out what I'm saying.
I mean, it's definitely something we can consider in the future when we're
I mean,
doing things.
and, without anything else there to support it, let's say, I was just looking at this building, if that building is here, it could be over in the back and out of sight.
Paul, I think Ethan brought up a good point, that this proposed building is part of the agritourism uses of the property, and that they
Right.
are trying to separate those types of uses from where.
That wasn't in the description. I mean,
And so he
Yeah.
can take that as a comment, and we will
Right.
make sure that the information is passed along.
And that's all. I mean, I can understand that, but just seeing a building out in the middle of nowhere at this point, to me, it could be put over here. But if there's more reason for it, if it's gonna be a store or classrooms, whatever you're gonna do, that's fine, but it wasn't in the description, that's all. And I'm just, what I'm saying is what comes to my mind, because I saw nothing else. So, and as you say, it's concept, so I'm just throwing it out there.
It's something we will definitely consider.
Any other comments or questions? I would say, from my comments, I don't see it as a problem either, the way it is, because the use is the biggest thing. It's not, the building is a commercial site now, and you're going to turn it into a farm site or farm, and the way to do it is in front of everything so people can see it. So, and the uses it had before with the seed business and the Monsanto and Bayer, were completely different. So I think you need to set a tone that it is a farm, it's not an old farm, you're gonna make it look like a farm place.
Yeah, and the proposed building would be a very aesthetically pleasing barn. I mean, it's not gonna be a commercial-looking building. It's,
Well, that's kind of what, granted, it's concept, so, but that's kind of what I would like to see, what's it gonna be used for? If it's gonna be classroom, you got people in here, you gotta have septic, you gotta have, you gotta make provisions for certain things. So it all has to be there at some point.
yeah, understood.
We should start with the setback variance and variance, I don't know, but, we need to get those done so the site plan is useful.
What are we, Carla, we would take each side yard separate, front yard separate, or do you just grant, do we have to say how much we're granting that variance for?
Well, we're making a recommendation to the Board of Appeals.
Well, we have to recommend some distance.
Correct, so it's not an all or nothing. You could recommend that they accept what the applicant is proposing for one setback, and you could recommend a different setback for something else. One of the things you look at in the variance is the minimum relief needed, to get what you need. So if you feel that what the applicant is asking for is maybe more than what they need, or what could be done, you certainly could recommend something other than what they're requesting.
I don't have that, but I think at some point you gotta say what that distance is.
Right.
What you're getting relief from.
Correct.
Like, the way I figure it in the front yard, you're asking for a 433-foot variance.
Right, the Board of Appeals, they have to grant a specific number. It has to be a variance of so many feet from the ordinance. I think Mr. Mackey had a comment or questions.
I'm just trying to clarify. Are you asking whether you need to make separate motions for each one?
No, I'm just, if you say, you're making a motion to grant the variances, do we say that it's a 433-foot variance for the front yard, a 463-foot variance for the east side? Is that
Yeah,
the
that would
way?
be my recommendation to you. When you make your recommendation to the Board of Appeals, you would want to include the footage of the variance, because the Board of Appeals is going to have to grant a variance in a specific amount.
Then my next question is, to the west, will they need a variance for this proposed barn area? Because that'll
No.
change, they won't need that.
No, because that proposed barn is not related to the processing
Okay.
and sale of animal products.
So can I get my numbers straight with you? 433-foot front yard variance. 465 east side variance. And a 100-foot west side variance. Does that work out?
Yes,
And we don't need a rear yard.
no.
Is that right?
Yep.
Anybody else?
I'm
Well, I'm gonna ask a question because I'm new here, to learn something here. So these buildings are existing, so they had to get a variance when they built them the first time, right?
It was a different use.
use.
Different use, so we're asking for a variance because it's a
And
new
different-
use.
And a different ordinance at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, different
Okay.
ordinance, but mostly
Alright.
it's the use.
Okay,
Right, the setbacks could have been different under a prior ordinance.
okay.
And like the barn, this barn we've been discussing,
Right.
like your barn could be
Right.
different than.
Okay. Just,
And the use could be a use where they wouldn't need a variance at all, it just depends on the use.
okay.
They vary by use.
Then I'll make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Appeals for Lester C. Jones and Son Incorporated for their property located at 32545 Galena Sassafras Road for a 433-foot front yard variance from the required 600 feet, for a 465-foot variance from the required east side yard boundary line, and a 100-foot variance from the required 600-foot setback from the west boundary line. Make sure I got all this. We're doing the variance first, right? That the proposal is consistent with the multiple goals and strategies of the Kent County Comprehensive Plan. That the plan encourages the expansion of local businesses, diversification of agricultural operations, and development of agritourism. That the applicant is working with the state and local health officials to obtain the required permits. The proposal is consistent with the general intent and the use design environmental standards found in the land ordinance. Adequate parking is available. I'm in the site plan. I may have to strike that, Bill. Let me find the one we're doing.
Page, yeah. No, page number, sorry.
All right,
Previous page.
I haven't found it. I got you now.
Got it.
The granting of this variance will not cause substantial detriment to adjacent or neighboring properties. The variance will not change the character of the neighborhood or district. The comprehensive plan supports this application as it recognizes the importance of diversifying agricultural operations and encouraging agritourism, and the practical difficulty is due to the size, shape, and configuration of the parcel. And although the property has a large area, it has an irregular shape, and the existing buildings are located on the narrowest portion of the property. That do it?
I have a motion. Any discussion? All right, a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I'll call the
I got one little question I'd like to ask of our attorney here. If we approve what we're doing, granted, we're only advising the zoning board, or the appeals board, but that doesn't lock in that barn, the building that's being built? Does it?
I think what my understanding is that a variance is not needed for the barn.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter if you approve or if you recommend this variance or not. It doesn't affect that barn because the barn could be put there without the need for a variance.
Well, the side yard is 600, and this is only, and it's 200, was it? 276 to the
It's
property
just
line.
Or the setbacks are dependent on the use of the building.
This is
So-
meat processing and milk.
Right. That
This is not
requires,
as a barn, just a
right,
barn.
a meat processing plant
Right.
requires a greater setback than just a barn where animals are going to be in. Is that correct, Carla?
What's
Then
this,
you want to elaborate.
what would be the setback for the barn then, Carla?
Uh,
25 feet? if it's
Well,
an
it's going to
accessory.
depend on exactly what's in the
25
barn.
feet? Okay, all right. No, that's all. I
But-
just wanted to get that clear. I wanted it clear for myself, that's all.
Most structures for housing animals is a 100-foot setback.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I'll call the question. Bill Crowdy,
Aye.
Jonathan Quinn,
Aye.
Paul Rugi,
Aye.
Ray Strong,
Aye.
and I'll vote with the majority. So the variance is granted, or to the recommendation to the Board of Appeals. You want to do the special exception?
Joe, did you ask for public comment?
I did not.
I don't think we did.
I'm sorry about that. Everyone's so quiet out there.
And I believe that Beth may have a letter to read as well.
What we should do is then maybe vacate that motion.
Yeah, okay.
Reopen it.
Don't text me. I was just gonna be in support of them. Don't
Okay.
Okay.
And if the public comment was in support, then I think you're fine.
Any other
We'll make
comment?
that part of that.
There's no one on the, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm not on the list to speak, but I do have a question, and it may not be appropriate to this at all. I own the farm next to it. I'm 32721 Galena, Sasser.
Can you step forward? We'll, yeah,
You want to identify yourself?
yeah,
correct?
and we'll hold that motion. We'll see. Can you raise your right hand? Is the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And your name and address for the record.
My
Thank you.
name is Alice Breger, and my address is 32721 Galena, Sassafras Road, Galena 21635.
Okay, what did you want to ask?
All right, I have a concern, okay? I don't think it may impact this at all. I own the farm next to them, and there's a road there. Okay, it's an abandoned road. It was called Pigpen College Road. Okay, and for the last 40 years since we've owned the farm, we've shared the road, the access to that road with our next-door neighbors, which happened to be Asgrow, which became Briar. Okay, I want to ensure that I can run farm equipment on that road, that I will have access to that road.
Okay, well, I don't know that we have any, that's a
Yeah, that's
D
not before
question.
this
Yeah, we can't,
board.
Okay,
I mean,
Yeah, that's a question between the two property owners as to.
all right, well, we already settled it. We said, fine,
Yeah.
okay, but it was nothing in writing or anything, but that's my one big concern. thank you very much.
All right, well, I think that you got agreeable neighbors. I hope you can work something out.
I can assure you that's no problem.
As long as I'm not driving the combine, right?
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much, I appreciate your kindness.
No problem. I'm sorry I didn't get you sooner. If no one else wants to speak to this application at all, if not, we'll call the question again. I guess we had it.
Yeah, we already did.
Okay,
We're good to go.
They are the people. Okay.
Yeah.
okay, we're good. Okay? What's, special exception?
Already ready? I make a recommendation that we send a favorable recommendation. I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Appeals for Lester C. Jones and Sons Incorporated for the property located at 32545 Galena Sassafras Road to use the facility for a milk and meat processing, retail sales, events, food preparation, and ag education. Find that the proposal of the site is already developed with buildings previously utilized as ag research facility. The front yard is already landscaped. All of the structures are less than 600 feet from the front side property lines. The parcel is uniquely shaped with a narrow area along the Galena Sassafras Road that opens to a large field. The activities related to milk and processing will be completely enclosed. The proposed uses will comply with the required regulations regarding safe food handling and waste disposal. That wastewater from the milk processing plant will be collected and hauled back to the dairy. Because live animals will not be on site, there is no waste management plan through the Natural Resource Conservation Service or the University of Maryland Extension Service. The applicant has been in contact with the Kent County Health Department and the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene Center for milk and dairy product safety. The surrounding area is agriculture, and the nearest house is more than 600 feet from the buildings. The nearest schools, churches, or other public facilities are more than 1 mile from the site. There are no known impacts on community facilities and services or on cultural or historic landmarks. There will be no known impacts from noise, smoke, vibration, odor, or other hazards. The proposed uses are appropriate and consistent with the comprehensive plan and land use ordinance. One goal of the comprehensive plan is to maintain and strengthen natural resource and working land-based industries, found on page 15 of the comprehensive plan. One of the strategies is to fulfill that goal are to provide, promote, and support the agricultural industries and can secure its future in the county, and to encourage the development of farm-based industries, included agritourism, which is found on page 17 of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call the question. Ray Strong?
Aye.
Paul Ruge?
Aye.
Jonathan Quinn?
Aye.
Bill Crowley?
Aye.
And I'll vote with the majority. So that will be both positive recommendations of the Board of Appeals. And now we can get any more on the concept plan. We kind of got into that already, but I mean, we can go back there. If there's any, I know Paul's concerns. I don't have those same concerns, but can understand when we get farther in the process, we'll get to see a better, a more detailed plan anyway.
The way you guys are going, you'll probably have a planter 100 feet wide before long anyhow.
Any comments about it?
It's a pretty site up there.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
can't
farm.
imagine
I'm glad to see it used like this. It'll be great for the county. I think
How many people
tourists.
do you foresee employing up there? Do you know?
It's hard to say. It could be as many as 10 in the future, but that's dependent on how everything goes building.
All family members?
No, it'd probably be outside. Trust me, my family's plenty busy enough right now.
Well, I don't have anything.
Yeah, anyone else comments or anything?
I'm just curious, with that building that's over there, I'm back to the building again. Do you foresee maybe in the future of trying to access 290 from that building if it becomes a,
You mean like another driveway or something?
yeah, if it becomes some kind of
I doubt
store
it.
or whatever? I kind of envision you turn this into a retail store of some sort,
I don't think we're necessarily
especially if
thinking
it
of it like
grows,
that.
'cause-
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how it all goes and works
Right.
out, but
I mean, I
don't.
hope it does well. I mean, to me, it's a long trip out to Sudlersville. I see this, I foresee this being pretty much the same type of thing.
Yeah,
And if they have to drive through all those buildings, I mean, it's just something else for you to think about at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
because that takes work too, to put a proposed access point in, so.
yep. At this point, no, I don't foresee a driveway being there, but maybe in the future.
All right, but you can see where I was going with the concept plan, if you're gonna do it, or you're thinking about it, put it on the plan, and not come back 14 times.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Well, thank you very much. We look forward to your success up there.
Good luck dealing with the environmental health department.
And our health department, the county health department.
That is what he's told me.
Thank you.
Do they exist?
Staff reports.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Just, I'm happy to report to you that we expect on May 6th, that's next Tuesday, that the final version of the land use ordinance zoning text map will be introduced by the county commissioners. It contains the changes that Carla spent a long time working with the Critical Area Commission. All those are required changes. There's required changes from the governor's housing initiative, which basically revolves around sort of what a single-family residence is defined as. That was in 2024. There's solar legislation that was just adopted in 2025. There's mandatory changes to that. And then there's some minor corrections, typo, cut and paste. So there's really nothing that is optional. It's all state-required language. And that, when that's filed, there'll be an exhibit that will go through with track changes, so you can see exactly where language is substituted. And all of this is responding to state requirements. And a few things we found along the way, it's like, oops, we forgot to do that, or we didn't put that in, or we misspelled that, or a few places on the chart, the X was in the wrong spot. So, all those things are fixed up. You have time to re-review. So, and then that will just go through the 90-day legislative process, and the land use ordinance and the zoning text will be the law of the land. So
Maps, do they do the maps at the same time, Bill?
we're going to do them right, yeah, so that they become effective the same day, exactly, yep. We did them separately to create them, but now for the effective part, we want it to be the same day, so.
Good.
Yeah. So hopefully in July, we'll start with the new version of the same approach, so balancing economic development and agriculture.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Long haul for you guys. And
It's
some
been
of us.
exciting, we're closing in on 5 years, so, yeah.
So as the governor signed that bill on solar,
He has not signed it yet, is my understanding, but he is expected to, so.
could we, before this adoption's done, could we strengthen our regulations on solars as far as
I'll jump in.
landscaping and
I
that?
think we could pass whatever we want, but it's going to be deemed to be preempted and unenforceable. And so I think it would not be a good use of our efforts and time, because I don't think it would be enforceable.
Has anybody put him in a car and taken him around and showed him just how unwilling these companies are to do what's required?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. I certainly have not.
And the Secretary of Ag either.
Let me ask you, you say it'd be unenforceable for them putting it somewhere, but what about what we just went through where we can, let's say, make the site prettier?
Well, I think.
What kind of control can we
Well,
put on
I
that?
can say this, with respect to Morgneck Solar, as part of the approval by the Public Service Commission, the Public Service Commission specifically ordered them to follow our ordinance. And I think they agreed to that, or when they went before the Public Service Commission, they said they would do that because I think they felt that that enhanced their chances of getting approval from the PSC. So the Morgneck Solar one, I think we are fine. This law is not going to affect that because the Public Service Commission mandated that the same things that are in our ordinance they have to do. For going forward, we're not going to see that, and I believe the solar lobby is pretty strong. One of the things they don't like are berms. And I looked at the legislation, and it specifically says that berms are not required. I think that wasn't put in there by accident.
Cannot be required.
Cannot. So I don't see a condition being put in by the Public Service Commission that a berm will have to be put in for landscaping purposes. I think we should expect that the statewide standards that are in the ordinance are going to be the standards that you're going to have. And I think if you, or say if the county tries to enact standards that are more stringent, the solar developers will say they're preempted, and I think if it goes to a legal challenge, they would prevail, in my opinion.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear it's preempted. I mean, the law says you shall do this, or you shall not do that. And in fact, I've proposed that we just incorporate those standards into our code so that we are consistent with state law. And the good news is, and we were just at the Maryland Department of Planning Secretary's Roundtable, you know, that piece of legislation almost died. Everyone thought it's dead. And then like the last second, it got resurrected in a completely new form. And there was lots of things in there that I would consider pretty pro-county friendly. So surprisingly, I didn't expect the things that we saw. So there are required setbacks from the edge of the project, which is 100 feet, which is pretty generous. I mean, I know ours is 200 and can be reduced to 100 if the property owner signed paperwork, but the state's requiring it's got to be at least 100. There has to be a landscape buffer. It can't be any wider than 35 feet, but they do have to provide it. It has to be 35 feet. So it's kind of a compromise position. I think everyone expected it would be a preempt everything position, so it's not that at all. So there actually are standards, and they meet some of our needs. They include setbacks and landscaping. So I really think it's a good compromise bill, so.
Beg to disagree, but.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, sure.
I would look at it this way. It could have been worse. It could, it could have been worse.
It started worse, for sure.
Yes.
Knowing they would probably have something to cater
Right.
on. I mean, that was.
I mean, my position is that matters such as this should be decided on the local level and not the statewide level, because the local governments and commissions know their county and know their land better and are more stakeholders.
And it shouldn't, the
Right.
chairman of the Senate shouldn't be employed by the solar industry, should have recused himself, I believe. I think, and that's been said in editorials and local, and state papers, and, I mean, it's a blatant disregard for public forum.
You can go up to Massey, what is it, next week, and see just what the Public Service Commission's gonna do.
Yeah.
We have a hearing up there next week.
That's the biggest problem with this whole bill is the precedent. It says
Yeah.
it starts with solar, so taking the power from the county, so what's the next thing?
The problem that we have is that the legislature is, Maryland, you know, it's population. And the population of the state is centered in the Baltimore-Washington corridor. And that's where the decision makers are. So you have local legislators on the Eastern Shore that, in Western Maryland, that constantly vote against having more state control over things, but they're outnumbered. And I don't know a solution, just given the demographics and the population of the state, because the more urbanized and suburban areas of the state elect legislators who look for greater state regulation and control. And that's been the trend. And I don't, just given the demographics and population of the state of Maryland, I don't know how I don't see that changing, unfortunately.
They're having enough trouble putting the power line in, let alone putting solar panels in.
I would expect that before long, the money's gonna run out, and you're not gonna have to worry about it anyhow.
Well, that hasn't
Put
stopped
these
them,
things in there.
that hasn't stopped them yet. I mean, look at the deficit, but we're kind of off topic, but I'll say this, when I travel, I find myself looking at solar panels now to see landscaping, and I'm amazed at how many that I see that have no landscaping at all, and then others that I see, a few evergreens that are not healthy, that don't really provide any screening. Maybe they will in 20 years if they survive, but they don't provide screening. So I get it, what you are told is going to happen and then what you see out in the field often are two different things.
Jonathan probably sees this, but I talked to a lot of solar developers and companies, lots of them, because they, and basically, the one out of Texas, I've get Prospect, there's so many, but he said the two best states to work in for solar are Maryland and Illinois, not Texas, where they're based out of. He does, we have more projects in Illinois and Maryland because of the PSC. He said that, the preemption and the ease of getting through community solar. So, and the money, I think the capacity, line capacity and subsidies may go.
The same line runs right through Delaware, and as soon as you cross that line, you don't see any solar fields.
Right. Well, the other thing is, the community, I think, is at 5 MVs is the cutoff. And so there are certain requirements that are a little more stringent but it's not 5 MVs or more, it's above 5 MVs. So what I'm noticing, and just my unscientific observations, is that what the solar companies are proposing are projects that are either 5 MV or just below. So they're not going to have the more stringent regulations when you get above, so they push it up to the top.
I think the other reason they're doing that is there's advantages to doing community solar. I think there's tax credits, and so,
State,
right.
if they go over that, then they don't qualify for
Correct.
those things.
So they make them as large as you can make them, but still be community solar.
The lease rates are up to, I've got 7,700 per acre per year on lease rates. And purchase rates, unbelievable. I mean, he said if you're on Delmarva Power, not Chop Tank, because Chop Tank isn't as friendly for solar. Delmarva Power with line capacity, 2 miles from a substation, $70,000 an acre to purchase it for these communities. So at that number, you could see a lot of 5 megawatt projects going up, because why wouldn't you put one up if you don't see it?
I get at least 3 letters a week.
Yeah. But that's the numbers these guys, they're salesmen, so who knows? I sign anything, but just crazy stuff. It distorts the whole land use ordinance when those numbers float around. So, was there any other staff comments? I didn't ask. And we have some public here that can offer any comments? Just listening. Uh-oh. Well, appreciate you coming.
We live next door to the
Jones, to Jones.
Oh, good.
We just decided to stay and see that.
Sure, good, I understand.
Just out of asking, when this site came in for their big expansion of, my gosh, what's it been, 10 years ago or more, they were talking about how important that operation was because the Eastern Shore had such a unique soils and temperature and everything. What do they do now? I mean, is it all done on computers, I guess, that generated the same area?
Well, the company Bayer's got some big problems with the glyphosate Roundup lawsuits, so they're getting out. So I think I think a lot of theirs is just downsizing completely in the industry, that part of it. So, and I'll be honest, they can, anymore, they can do it in Argentina, Brazil, Romania,
They do a lot in Mexico.
Yeah.
I know Corey Hopkins, she goes to Mexico a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they do a lot of research down there.
And you got more growing season too to do it double. You can do it all year round in some places. So, any other questions for the group? We have next month, we do, I know you don't know the agenda, but you did mention we have a presentation
Yes.
from,
The gentleman from Linningrick's KISS, Jim Constantine, who came in December and gave you all an update on Millington Crossing, is planning to come and do that again in June for you all. So, you remember that presentation? It focused around the proposed design guidelines for Millington. I think they want to, let you know where they are in the wastewater treatment process and different parts of the project. So I know that Russ Richardson, who's the developer in this concern, wants to keep this board updated on sort of their progress, so you're well aware of, what's going on when they actually come for approvals of plans, et cetera, which will be a little further down the line, so.
thank you. Did someone, and not that it should be you, it should be, they're interested, they proactively asked Millington to come?
I believe they offered to do a separate presentation for Millington.
Okay, good. Very good. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, thank you all very much.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. Jonathan doesn't know what it's like.
Yeah, he's gonna find out. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, David. Let's stop. Hold on, gotta do it here.
Oh, okay, all right.
I was even half hour early, I didn't get the time change.
It's always been 1:30.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Look, I had a Board of Appeals at Rock Hall, and the month before, 3 people said they wanted to have the
Right.
meeting at 7 instead of 6.
No, it's 6 instead of 7.
6:30 or 7, and only one voted against it, and she was the only one that showed up at 6.
Right. We were there an hour before the other one showed up.
Staggering in at 5 or
Right.
7. Oh, I forgot.